How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello, America. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would absolutely be delighted to have you with me. We need to talk about China. I was actually trading notes with Brian Kilmeade a little while ago. He emailed me about something I had tweeted and wanted to see if I had any links for it. And so I sent him what I had. And there's a piece at my old website, redstate.com, by Eric Dernica. And the headline is Weaponizing Tragedy. Beijing is exploiting Charlie Kirk's assassination online. In fact, Spencer Cox noted that foreign entities were spreading misinformation and disinformation, and a lot of that appears tied into the Chinese propaganda network. Zhao Deshui is a member of the People's Armed Police Propaganda Bureau and began tweeting about how there was no surveillance footage. Surely there's no way this could happen. There's something that must be done, and tweeting about the incompetence of an Indian-run FBI, and sowing lots of discord about Charlie Kirk's assassination, suggesting perhaps the Jews were behind it. Notice every time Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, whoever suggests the Jews were behind it, they're not actually focused on the sexually deviant shooter Tyler Robinson. Notice also they're not talking about radical Islam. Notice also they're not talking about China. What's really noticeable is the Chinese are stirring a lot of these socially discontented pots around the world, trying to get other governments to turn inward and look inward. I need you to bear with me here real quick. There's something going on in China. There's something destabilizing happening in China, and that actually makes them more dangerous. And you should know that I'm in the camp that believes China is not a country in the ascent. It's a country in the descent. It's a country that is collapsing. Its birth rate is down. People are fleeing. People are unhappy. The entrepreneurial class has been chased away. Xi Jinping decided he wanted to reintroduce a Maoist communism and get away from the free market reforms of the 1980s and 90s. And that society is beginning to destabilize. Xi Jinping just arrested, disappeared a bunch of senior members of the military that he himself had handpicked to take over and clean up the military. They hadn't done what he wanted them to do, and now they're gone. They're disappeared. Nobody knows where they are. He has arrested a number of millionaires and billionaires in China who were able to acquire wealth. He has pushed out of the Politburo others, and there's this rumor in China that there's a lot of discontent within the Politburo about Xi Jinping's leadership, that they are beginning to regret having expanded his term beyond what any other Chinese leader had had since Mao. Now there's this story in the New York Times. China's censors are moving to stamp out more than just political dissent online. They're targeting the public mood itself. The Chinese censors are punishing bloggers and influencers whose weary posts are resonating widely in a country where optimism is fraying. The authorities have punished 2 bloggers who advocated for a life of less work and less pressure. An influencer who said that it made financial sense not to marry and have children. And a commentator known for bluntly observing that China still lags behind Western countries in terms of quality of life. These supposed cynics and skeptics, 2 of whom had tens of millions of followers, have had their accounts suspended or banned in recent weeks as China's internet regulator conducts a new cleanup of Chinese social media. The 2-month campaign, launched by the Cyberspace Administration of China in late September, is aimed at purging content that incites excessively pessimistic sentiment and panic or promotes defeatist ideas such as hard work is useless, according to a notice from the agency. In reality, we all experience fatigue and anxiety as a result of work and life, but these real emotions deserve respect and should not be deliberately amplified for traffic. The internet is not a dumping ground for negativity, China's state broadcaster, CCTV, said in an editorial above the campaign. By the way, is it not just me? Do you love that China's official propaganda news network is the CCTV, the closed circuit television, as they're monitoring you? That's not actually what it stands for there. But yes, it is the closed circuit television. They're monitoring the Chinese people and propagandizing to them. Around the world, officials debate how to keep social media from stoking outrage and polarizing that could spill over into real-world violence or harm. The internet regulator in China has framed its campaign in similar terms, but China's crackdown carries a distinctly political undercurrent. It demonstrates that concern among its leadership about the spread of malaise as the country grapples with economic uncertainty, a volatile rivalry with the United States, and growing disenchantment among young people. In recent years, some young people have opted out of the rat race in favor of a minimal life of lying flat or giving up on goals altogether and letting it rot. The account of 2 bloggers known for promoting a minimalist lying flat lifestyle were blocked from adding new followers last month. What is lying flat? Literally, laying down. 5 years ago, Lu Hong discovered that he enjoyed doing nothing. He quit his job as a factory worker in China, biked 1,300 miles from Sichuan province to Tibet, and decided he could get by on odd jobs and $60 a month from his savings. He called his new lifestyle lying flat. I've been chilling, Mr. Lau says, age 31. I don't feel like there's anything wrong. He titled his post, "Lying Flat is Justice," attached a photo of himself lying on his bed in a dark room with the curtains drawn. Before long, the post was being celebrated by Chinese millennials as an anti-consumerist manifesto. Lying Flat went viral and has become a broader statement about Chinese society. A generation ago, the route to success in China was to work hard, get married, and have children. The country's authoritarianism was seen as a fair trade-off as millions were lifted out of poverty. But with employees working longer hours and housing prices rising faster than incomes, many young Chinese fear they will be the first generation not to do better than their parents. Sound familiar? Sounds pretty American, I got to tell you. The problem, however, is that it has incentivized young people in China to begin expressing their discontent. So now let's pile all these things on. You have a Chinese government that's begun to crack down on the military, disappearing top generals who were handpicked by the leadership. You have rumors of Politburo discontent. You have social media influencers having their accounts disabled for complaining about society. President Xi is doing everything he can to stamp out any view that doesn't glorify his rule of China. That's not what a strong leader does. In this country, you have the Chinese propaganda being pushed about Charlie Kirk to stir sentiment. You have the Chinese police stations that have cropped up in this country where they're going about detaining and harassing Chinese citizens in this country and immigrants from China in this country. You have the bioweapons lab they discovered in Los Angeles. You have the agricultural pathogens they tried to sneak into Detroit. You now have the cell network terror program they disrupted in New York City that we now know was funded by the Chinese government. Countries on decline are dangerous. They're dangerous because those countries try to distract from their problems by stoking nationalist sentiment. And the nationalist sentiment being stoked in China is they got to invade Taiwan. They've got to piece together all of China. Xi Jinping's argument is that if all of China can be put back together and the last piece is Taiwan, there will be harmony. And he's trying to tell the young people in China that if you'll just let me put the whole country back together, you'll have peace and prosperity, which isn't true. The problem for Xi Jinping is that a lot of the people of China of the upper middle class have the means to travel, and they've been traveling to places like Europe and the United States and realizing how much freer other people are, and they go back to China and tell the Chinese, which just stokes the depression, and they go online and they say how depressed they are. They don't want to work. It's too hard to work. It's too expensive to work. It's too expensive to have a house. It's too expensive to live in China. You got the young people saying, I can live on $60 a month in savings and the charity of others and odd jobs, so why not do that, which breaks down the Chinese economy? Xi has to do something. He's made an alliance with Iran and Russia and North Korea. Not exactly bastions of freedom, but not exactly bastions of wealth either. He's made his bed. Lying in his bed. And the United States, as a result, needs to be prepared for them to invade Taiwan. But not just to invade Taiwan. The Chinese leadership fundamentally believes, that they can shut us down in the process, and that will be a big moral victory for the Chinese. What the Chinese believe is that they can target the United States of America. They can take out our power grid. They can take out our internet. They can take out our water supply. They can cripple us so we can't respond to Taiwan, and that'll be a big propaganda win for the Chinese leadership. It's remarkable. It's truly remarkable. But they put in place the pieces to be able to do it. Don't underestimate a nation in decline. We shouldn't. The telltale sign that there are problems within China is the disappearance of the Chinese military leadership that Xi himself picked. And now arresting people and disabling people who refuse to be quiet about their discontent. But this also means something else. There are a lot of voices in the United States and the editorial press and online who believe the Chinese just get stuff done, y'all. Look at this bridge China just built. It's the widest bridge over a canyon ever built, and they built it in 4 years. It's incredible. They have a restaurant at the top. Look at the high-speed rail they built, except in China, inevitably, these things that they build, they then run into problems. They collapse. Remember, they built a high-speed rail line to Tibet, and they did it in record time, and it was praised in the New York Times, and within a year it had fallen over on its side. It's a Potemkin village, a dangerous one. But I want you to, here's your homework assignment. I've never given a homework assignment in my life. I'm going to give you a homework assignment. Pay attention over the next several weeks to the number of major news articles in this country about the building successes in China and the successes in China, because the Chinese Communist Party is trying to plant stories in the American press about how awesome and great they are, and they would not be doing that and turning off the accounts of millennials complaining about the state of Chinese living if things were as good as it actually was. Y'all just keep your eye out. You're going to see it. Boll & Branch kindly sent me a new set of king-size sheets, and I'm happy to get them, but I'll tell you the truth, I've already got Boll and Branch sheets that I've had for about a decade. They are so soft now. They haven't frayed. They haven't worn out. They've just gotten really soft. They're made of the highest quality, 100% organic cotton. They're very durable. And right now, they've got limited edition fall colors for a deeply comforting bedroom. And they come with a 30-night worry-free guarantee. And I'm telling you, the more you wash them, the softer they get, and they don't wear out. I've had my set of Boll and Branch sheets for almost a decade. You can start building your sanctuary of comfort this fall with Boll and Branch. For a limited time, get 20% off your first set of sheets plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/Eric. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND branch.com/Eric, ERICK. Save 20%, unlock free shippings, exclusions apply, and you get those great fall colors right now. Well, this just happened. There is a big confrontation outside the Speaker's Speaker's office on Capitol Hill. Ruben Galeo and Mark Kelly, the two senators from Arizona, showed up to do a press conference outside Mike Johnson's office, demanding they sign in the Congresswoman-elect Gravalia from Arizona, who has not been sworn in. They're claiming it's to block the release of the Epstein documents. Mike Lawler then showed up, the congressman from New York, and told the senators, reopen the government and they'll get sworn in. Galeo started yelling, stop covering up for pedophiles. Lawler responded, nobody's covering up for pedophiles, knock it the hell off and open up the government. Johnson accused them of doing a publicity stunt, and they need to go vote and reopen the government so they can get their member from Arizona sworn in. So there were two Republican members who were sworn in. They were sworn in a special election. The government was open, and their families were in town, so they got sworn in. The Arizona Congresswoman-elect was not elected before the government shut down and didn't set up a time before the government shut down. Since the government is now closed down, she can't set up a time. The other two had done it before the government shut down, so Johnson swore them in. And the Democrats were like, it's a conspiracy to block the Epstein release. The Democrats are now like hanging everything on the Epstein release. It's kind of dumb because Republicans did it when the Democrats were, it's Joe Biden's on Bill Clinton. They're all on the Epstein. Now the Democrats are doing it as payback to the GOP. It's such a stupid talking point to begin with. The Epstein files, though, are going to be released. They got the votes to do it in the House of Representatives as soon as the government reopens. At this point, it's the Democrats in the Senate who are trying to block the Epstein files from being released. It's the Democrats doing it. They're keeping the government shut down. Based on their own logic, they're keeping the government shut down because they don't want to release the Epstein files. That's what's going on here, based on their own logic. Now, my logic is this coming year, China's going to build 100 coal-powered plants and something like 20 nuclear power plants. In this country, 0, because permitting in this country for power plants is so difficult to get. Americans for Prosperity wants to get you involved in a bipartisan push for permitting reform in this country to speed up the building of pipelines and power plants. You can go do this, and you can, the website is prosperityspossible.com. We've got to seize energy dominance in this country. Permitting reform is before the House of Representatives. It's for oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico and in Anwar. It's for power plants. It's for pipelines. They're building through Appalachia and elsewhere to transport natural gas around the country to lower costs for you and me. All you have to do is go to prosperityspossible.com. Prosperityspossible.com is the website. Sign up with Americans for Prosperity. Get involved. They have chapters in every single state, and they would love to have you on board the chapters around the states. Just go to prosperityspossible.com, sign up and learn more from Americans for Prosperity at prosperityspossible.com. They'd love to have you get involved around the country in all 50 states. In business, they say you can have better, cheaper, or faster, but you can only pick two. What if you could have all three at the same time? That's exactly what Cohere, Thomson Reuters, and Specialized Bikes have since they've upgraded to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure OCI is the blazing fast platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs, where you can run any workload in a high availability, consistently high performance environment and spend less than you would with other clouds. How's it faster? OCI's block storage gives you more operations per second. Cheaper? OCI costs up to 50% less for compute, 70% less for storage, and 80% less for networking. Better? In test after test, OCI customers report lower latency and higher bandwidth versus other clouds. This is the cloud built for AI and for all your biggest workloads. Right now, with zero commitment, try OCI for free. Head to oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson. All right. I just got to tell you guys, I got to. I sat here while I was in the last monologue and could just see a disturbance in the phones. Apparently, my call screener decided someone did not qualify, didn't have the sense to get on the show. And the person called back and 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 then got put on hold and would hang up, call back, get put on hold, hang up, call back. So apparently his point was that I have been paid by the Jews for my prior monologue on China. That basically was it, that it's all part of a Zionist plot to distract from the Jews' control to the Chinese. Y'all people have lost their minds. My goodness gracious, how many people are the Chinese paying out there to pollute people's minds? This happened on CNN, Nancy Pelosi and Dana Bash.
There is a Democrat running for attorney general who's embroiled in a scandal over text messages in which he, the Democrat, said that the GOP Speaker of the House of Delegates should get 2 bullets to the head for how he paid tribute to a former moderate Democratic lawmaker who died. He has apologized. Should he get out of the race?
Well, that's up to the people, the leaders in Virginia. They have said he has apologized. What I understand is they say that on balance he's a better person to be attorney general, but that's up to them. But I wish there would be enough fuss of all the times that people have said they were going to put a bullet in my head right in public, in the public
I think
domain.
it's because of that, that's one of the reasons I wanted to ask you that. You are somebody who knows all too well in a horrific way.
We have to get rid of that kind of language. I mean, it's just not appropriate.
If you were Abigail Spanberger, who's the Democrat running for governor, would you call on him to step aside?
But she has to do what she has to do. She's going to be governor. She's running very well. Everybody's very proud of her candidacy. And her race is her race, and her state is her state, and it's up to her. I really don't get involved in other people's races, that the mayor of New York, that this, of that. It's up to the people in that state.
So Nancy Pelosi, whose husband was beaten, and it turned into a joke among some on the right. The man who beat him was crazy, had no political axe to grind, was just nuts. And the people on the right were, I think, rightly criticized for joking about the assault on her husband. And Nancy Pelosi denounced violence then and rhetoric, but here she's willing to say, oh, we don't need that level of rhetoric here, but I'm not going to say you should get out of the race. She's willing to tell Republicans in states outside of California they should get out of the race, but she's not willing to tell a Democrat to get out of the race. It's all political. It's all political to the Democrats. Every sin they attribute to the Republicans, they are guilty of. All of the lectures on moral authority, they themselves are guilty of. I've now got the Tim Kaine audio. This is a man who said George Allen should have gotten out of his Senate race for saying macaca. This is Tim Allen now, or Tim Kaine talking about Jay Jones.
Do you think Jay Jones should drop out of the race in Virginia?
Jay has apologized. The statements that he made were indefensible, but I've known Jay Jones for 25 years. I think those statements were not in character, and he has apologized. I wish other people in public life would sincerely apologize for stuff. So, no, I still am a supporter.
I'm still a supporter. That's not the Jay Jones I know. These were his private messages. His private messages that he was willing to amplify it's kind of wild to me that the Democrats really are staking out this position that we're not going to try to push him out of race. You know what this does? When you get the crazy Republican who does this sort of stuff, the Republicans now can totally say, we're not asking for him to get out of the race. Why should we? The Democrats didn't want Jay Jones to get out of the race, and the Democrats will say, but this is here and now. Well, no, I'm sorry. Not going to work. Nope. Not going to happen. Jay Jones is not going to get out of the race. The voters, it's going to be up to them. And I need to know, or I know got a lot of listeners in Virginia. Are you guys going to support a man who thought not just that he wanted to put 2 bullets in the back of a politician's head, but also kill his children or hope that his wife would watch them die? Here's the part of the Jay Jones story that blows my mind and I don't think gets enough attention. What did Todd Gilbert, the former Speaker of the House in the Virginia House of Delegates, do to provoke Jay Jones, a Democrat at the time in the House of Delegates, to want Jay Jones to fantasize about putting 2 bullets in the back of Todd Gilbert's head? What vile thing did Todd Gilbert do to justify Jay Jones wanting 2 bullets in the back of his head and to have his kids die? Todd Gilbert said nice things about a dead Democrat at that Democrat's funeral. That's what he did. God's honest truth. That's what provoked Jay Jones to want to put 2 bullets in the back of Todd Gilbert's head and watch his children die. Is Todd Gilbert said nice things about a Democrat at that Democrat's funeral. That's a sociopath who would do that. That you would be provoked to want to murder someone because they said nice things at a funeral. There's something deeply demented about Jay Jones if he's willing to go there. Not only that, let's not forget the 116 mile per hour arrest in a 65. I had tweeted it was 45. Turns out it was 65 mile an hour zone. He was on the interstate, did 116 miles per hour, was arrested, sentenced to community service, and did 500 hours of community service fundraising for his own campaign. Fundraising for his own campaign. By the way, the prosecutor says he was not authorized. The prosecutor who prosecuted him at the time has now come forward and said he was not authorized. He was not authorized to do community service for himself, and yet he did it anyway. Now, here's the problem. There's nothing the judge can do. It's basically, I talked to a friend of mine who's a lawyer in Virginia. He says 21 days after the community service is filed for the judge to do anything, the time has lapsed for anybody to do anything about it. Nobody knew. He obfuscated, and it doesn't matter. Statute of limitations is gone. There's nothing they can do, but he did it. The voters can hold him accountable for it. The question is, how much are the voters of Virginia willing to recognize the conduct is unacceptable? How willing are the voters in Virginia to do this? Because I think I was saying last night, so I did an event, my buddy David Nicholas, my financial advisor, I did an event with him last night. It was essentially a Q&A for his clients to ask me questions, and somebody was asked about the race in Virginia. So the problem in Virginia is that Winsome Sears is on paper a great candidate. She's the lieutenant governor. She's an immigrant from Jamaica, black female Marine who's running as a Republican. Mom and wife, got into politics late in life, got elected to lieutenant governor of Virginia. And she's not running a good race. Southwest Virginia is Southwest Virginia. And I'm told she referred to it as the Southwest, which nobody in Southwest Virginia says. And I'm told that when she went to the Tidewater region of Virginia, which is the southeast region of Virginia, Chesapeake Bay, you got Portsmouth, Chesapeake, Norfolk. They say Norfolk there. They don't say Norfolk, and she referred to it as the Norfolk area as opposed to the Tidewater area. And those little regionalisms matter. I worked for a candidate in Georgia for a while. His name is Saxby Chambliss. He became the U.S. Senator. On his campaign in 1994, he had a lady from Chicago who was his fundraiser. Her name was Nancy. She was fantastic. She was a great fundraiser, but she wasn't from around here. And he was running down in South Georgia. And there's a town in South Georgia, a small city. It's spelled Cordele. Cordele. Someone was supposed to introduce him at this fundraiser. And the guy got sick. He couldn't come. It was very last minute. And so Nancy came on stage to introduce Saxby, and she thanked the people of Coeur d'Alene for coming. It's Cordele. It's Cordele. Down in South Georgia, they've got Unadilla. They have Vienna, but it's pronounced Vienna. They've got Houston County, but it's Houston County. They have Cairo, Georgia, but it's Cairo, Georgia. You got to know these things, these regionalisms. I the other day was talking about some people in New York City who were prominent politicians, and my agent who worked in New York City for years was texting me, so you're pronouncing them wrong. Curtis Sliwa. I said Silhouette Sliwa and others. So you're pronouncing them wrong. You got to get those right. If you're running to be governor of Virginia, you got to know the southeast part of the state is the Tidewater area. The southwest part of Virginia is called Southwest Virginia, not the Southwest. That's Arizona. She hasn't run a great race. But at the end, Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat who's run a very cautious race, has been unable to talk about things like transgenderism. There is a man in Northern Virginia. Y'all, I'm not making this one up. There is a man in Northern Virginia. He's in, I want to say, his late 50s. He claims he's transitioning. He's not transitioning. He just has long hair. And he's been going into women's and girls' bathrooms and locker rooms that are publicly accessible and watching them. He was found by police to have child porn on his phone, and the Northern Virginia police decided they're not going to do anything because he's transitioning. There's child porn on his phone from what one of the press reports said. He's in there watching women and girls. And the local governments refuse to prosecute him. The police are outraged by it, but saying he's not going to get prosecuted, so we're not going to arrest him. Prosecutor's not going to arrest him. We're just wasting our times. He's going to be let back out. Abigail Spanberger refuses to take a position on that issue. 3 boys were punished. One of them not so much because he's Muslim. The other 2 being white, they were punished. Even the Muslim parents recognized this discrimination because they were filmed by a girl in the boys' bathroom being upset about the girl being in the boys' bathroom, but the girl said she was transitioning, and the school system punished them, not the girl for videotaping them in the bathroom. Abigail Spanberger had nothing to say on that issue. Winsome Sears has mounted a comeback based on this issue. You combine that with Jay Jones. Jay Jones is an anchor on the ticket. But in Virginia, here's what the Democrats are counting on. In Virginia, this is what the Democrats are counting on. Abigail Spanberger has run a better campaign in large part because she hasn't been challenged by the media. She's answered no tough questions. She's ahead in the polling. Winsome Sears has not run a good campaign. And in Virginia, voters haven't split tickets since 2005. So their expectation is that people are going to go to the polls and they're going to vote Democrat straight ticket. So there's no reason to distance themselves from Jay Jones because he's going to be elected because of the strength of Spanberger's campaign. It depends on the voters of Virginia. Are they outraged enough that they're opposed to sending to office a man who wanted to put 2 bullets in the back of the head of a politician for saying nice things at another man's funeral? That's going to be an indictment on the character of the people of Virginia if they decide to choose Jay Jones over Jason Miyares, who's been a great attorney general who even the Democrats like. If they're that into raw partisanship that they can't say not this guy, even the voters of Alabama were willing to reject the judge down there in favor of Doug Jones based on the allegations against, Roy Moore. Even the voters of Alabama were willing to say, no, we'll take a Democrat for a couple of years over this. If the Democrats, the voters of Virginia, aren't willing to reject Jay Jones, it's a damning indictment on them that the people of Alabama have a better character than the people of Virginia. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is, irrelevant at this point because it's too late for you to call in. I have some news for you that is actually deeply encouraging. And it's just, we've got to the point, there's a story I didn't get a chance to get to today about Hunter Biden scandals in Europe. But I want to play this audio for you because it's remarkable that suddenly it's safe. Now that Joe Biden is out of the White House, it's safe for NBC News to do a story like this.
New numbers showing the dramatic change at the border.
We've got the most controlled border we've ever had in the history, and in my lifetime in the Border Patrol.
In Eagle Pass, Texas, during the Biden administration, more than 2,000 migrants crossed into the U.S. in a single day. But now, under President Trump's policies, officers encounter just 20 migrants a day here. Tonight, DHS touting the lowest number of illegal border crossings since 1970. And Border Patrol Chief Mike Banks tells us they'll expand the 1 mile of defensive buoys on the Rio Grande.
We've got about 500 miles identified across the entire Texas border where we're going to place these in the river.
Is this the new wall?
It's defense in depth.
We were here 2 years ago where migrants used to carry children on their backs to get across this river and cut through this barbed wire to get to the United States. They would see hundreds, even thousands a day in this very spot. But today, it's silent.
North in Del Rio, border residents telling us they're thrilled crossings are down.
We want our community back normal.
Now, isn't it remarkable? This is the same NBC News that never covered that when Joe Biden was president. Isn't that wild? The greatest bias in the American press is not what they cover, but what they don't cover. The stories the American Press Corps chooses not to cover is about bias. Now, let me translate that to Bari Weiss, who I mentioned a couple times this week, now being the editor-in-chief at CBS News. One of the things that she had an eye for when she was at the New York Times and now at the Free Press is covering the stories that people like you and me talk about that liberals in the media don't talk about. Because she understands that's part of the bias of the press. So she is probably going to start getting CBS to cover those. And I think it's an indicator at NBC, as, by the way, they are now breaking away from MSNBC. MSNBC is now separate from Comcast NBC network and changing their name. I forget what the dumb name was that they chose for themselves, but they're now a separate network. And suddenly you've got NBC News reporters telling stories that when they were tied to MSNBC, they never told. Isn't it funny to see the press waking up to tell the truth about the border? After 4 years of denying it was a problem on behalf of Joe Biden, they're suddenly like, we're not having any border crossings anymore. 20 from 2000 to 20. Genuinely a remarkable collapse in border crossings. But had you tuned into NBC News for the last 4 years, you would have never heard stories about the border crossings, except for 1 or 2 times in those 4 years. They simply treated it as a non-story to protect their precious Joe Biden when they thought he was running for president. And now the truth can be told. It's the same thing with this Hunter Biden story out on corruption. We'll get to that one tomorrow. Right now, I got to tell you about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. You can get 3 of them for less than $200 and save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. It's an air purifier. I got to travel to Burlington, Vermont tonight. I've got one in my travel bag. They're small, they're portable, you can hold it in your hand. You go to EdenPureDeals.com. You get 3 of them for less than $200. You use the discount code ERIC3, ERICK3 at EdenPureDeals.com. They trap pollen and dust and pet dander. They kill 99.9% of bacteria and viruses that float through the machine, and they wipe out every odor. No odor can stand up to the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. You go to EdenPureDeals.com. You put in the discount code ERIC3, ERICK3. And you'll get 3 of them. Upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your travel bag, your RV. You plug it in with a USB cord. You plug it directly into the wall. And they just work, wiping out odors. Generating ozone touches the odor particles and takes them out. EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code ERIC3. I'll be back with you live tomorrow from Burlington, Vermont. I'll talk to you then.